Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be talking about a deck from 2010 called Donphan. Donphan got top 32 at the World Championships in 2010. A guy named Tommy Taito from Finland got top 32 with it. But let's get right into it. So starting off with 4 Phanpy. Phanpy's got 70 HP, 2 Retreat, a Resistance to Lightning, and a Weakness to Water. Flail's definitely a decent attack. So for 1 colorless, does 10 times the amount of damage counters on Phanpy to the defending Pokemon. So, I mean, not amazing, but if you get hit, being able to chip into a Earthquake KO can be definitely really effective. And then 4 Donphan, so got 120 HP, 4 Retreat, a Resistance to Lightning, and a Weakness to Water. The body's called Exoskeleton, so any damage done to Donphan by attacks is reduced by 20. Really powerful body. Essentially, that makes it so you have 140 HP if your opponent is trying to one-shot you, and then you have even more HP than that if they're hitting you more than once for a knockout. So Exoskeleton is definitely really strong. And the first attack, which is really powerful as well, is Earthquake. So for 1 fighting, it does 60, and then it does 10 damage to each of your bench Pokemon. And so that value is really good. Like 1 for 60 is definitely really, really good. And the drawback obviously is putting damage counters on your bench, but you do play counters to that so that you're not always just taking 10 on all your bench Pokemon. Heavy Impact is the second attack. So for 3 fighting energy, hits for 90, which is definitely some good value as well. I mean, just an all-around solid card. 120 HP on a stage 1 is definitely really high as well. The Prime cards definitely are very strong. So definitely a good card. Really good card against Luxray GL level X. You one-shot a Luxray for 1 in the Earthquake. I think that was like kind of the premise of the deck. Honestly, the deck is like, it's okay. It's like fine. But compared to some of the other decks in 2010, it kind of pales in comparison in power, to be honest. And I think that's because the strategy was kind of like, well, I hope my opponent plays Luxray, and then I'm just going to absolutely demolish them for 1 energy. So you also play 1 Elektrike. So the Elektrike's for the Manectric, but the Elektrike's got 50 HP, free retreat, which is kind of nice. Resistance to metal and a weakness to fighting. Roar is the attack. Your opponent switches the defending Pokemon with one of his or her bench Pokemon. Can be good. I mean, if your opponent starts to Spiritomb, being able to roar it out of the active so you get access to trainers can be all right. Thunderfang, I'm not even going to talk about it because you don't even attack with Thunderfang. Manectric, 90 HP, free retreat, resistance to metal, and a weakness to fighting. So the body's called Electric Barrier. Prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon, excluding any Manectric. So, I mean, that's really helpful against Donphan because the Donphan hits all of your bench Pokemon every time you Earthquake. So when you're attacking with Earthquake, you have that ability to just say, I'm not going to take any damage from that except on the Manectric. And you play ways to heal the Manectric as well. So you can take a bunch of damage and then heal it off, which is kind of nice. Power Wave is a decent attack on Manectric as well. So for 1 lightning, stack does 30 damage to each Pokemon that has any powers, both yours and your opponent's. But because of Electric Barrier, you don't do it to your own Pokemon. So that is really good. 30s can be a really relevant number. Dropping it on like Pokemon with 100 HP, or 110 HP rather, like Gardevoir, like Garchomp, you hit them for 30, and then the next turn you can hit them with an Earthquake with an Expert Belt, and you hit them for 80, and that's a knockout. So definitely a really solid attack. Attract Current is also not an attack that I'm going to talk about because it's very bad as well. So Regirock, you play 1 Regirock, so for 90 HP, 3 retreat, weakness to water. You play it for the power, it's called Regicycle. So you can discard 2 cards from your hand, and then you take a basic fighting from your discard and attach it to Regirock. So that's just good acceleration. The deck plays no acceleration other than Regirock, but you do play this stadium called Stark Mountain, which lets you move around fighting energies to fire and fighting Pokemon. So it just keeps your acceleration up. All of a sudden you can get a Heavy Impact out of nowhere or an Entei Raikou Legend out of nowhere. Just a really cool card to keep your board's energy flowing. Relicanth, so you play 1 Relicanth, it's got 80 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to grass. So Grand Swell is definitely a really decent attack. So for 1 fighting, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 30 damage to that Pokemon for each Pokemon tool and stadium card your opponent has in play. So really effective against Luxchomp. If Luxchomp has 2 energy gains in play, or like an energy gain and an Expert Belt, you can one-shot a Luxray GL level X for 1, which is really good. Also just being able to snipe. I mean, if your opponent has like 2 tools in a stadium out, for 1 you get to snipe 90, which is like crazy good. And just knowing based on your opponent's board, the effect of Grand Swell can be very powerful. Amnesia is its second attack, not a great attack, but definitely has its uses. And so for fighting colors, does 30, and then choose them to one of the defending Pokemon's attacks. That Pokemon can't use that attack during your opponent's next turn. But Grand Swell is the main reason to play. Like, Grand Swell is definitely a really good attack. Okay, so you play an ERL as well. So Entei Raikou Legend. Really cool card. I love the art on this card. It's so neat. So 140 HP. It's both fire and lightning type. And then it has a weakness to both water and fighting. So that kind of makes sense, fighting for Raikou, water for Entei. And you have 2 attacks on the card. So for a fire and a colorless detonation spin, discard a fire energy attached to Entei Raikou, and then you do 90. So that can be really good against stuff like Steelix and Dialga level X. And then Thunderfall is really good as well. So for a lightning and a colorless, you discard all energy attached to Entei Raikou Legend, and then you do 80 damage to each Pokemon that has any Poke Powers. So because you play the Manectric, even though you play Pokemon with powers, you don't hit your own Pokemon, which is really clutch. And then you still snipe your opponent's Pokemon. So Thunderfall is great because you can clear a bunch of Pokemon in a board, but also Thunderfall has like kind of cool second use. So let's say you don't have the Manectric out, and you're about to lose a game. You're like, your opponent's at like 1 prize and you're at like 3 prizes. You can Thunderfall, knock out 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, and then also knock out your own Pokemon. And since they get knocked out at the same time from the attack, you go to sudden death, or at least you used to in a tournament. So that was really a really cool effect of Thunderfall. You could be losing a game, be like, I don't have any win condition, I don't have a way to win this game, and then you just reset the game. Which is kind of a cool effect of Thunderfall. Entei Raikou Legend is worth 2 prizes, so definitely be careful when you drop this boy. You have to drop both these cards at the same time to drop it, but it's kind of a liability because you get wrecked by stuff like Toxicroak G, a Kingdra does you in pretty good, and you have to be careful because it is worth 2 prizes. Okay, now getting into the support Pokemon. So you play a 2/2 Claydol line. Baltoy, you play for the Psychic Balance. The first attack for 1 colorless. If you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, draw cards until you have the same number of cards as your opponent. So definitely a solid attack if you have nothing but a Baltoy and an energy in your hand starting turn 1. And then you play that for the Claydol. So Claydol's got Cosmic Power. Cosmic Power, once during your turn before you attack, you may choose up to 2 cards from your hand, put them to the bottom of your deck, and then draw till you have 6. So really consistent power. And usually, it's kind of a liability on your bench because you're sniping your own bench with Donphan and ERL, but Manectric makes it not that big of an issue. Another cool part about Manectric is Claydol is often the target of Garchomp C level X, and not worrying about getting Dragon Rushed can be definitely really good because then you keep that consistency of Cosmic Power. You also play 2 Uxie. So Uxie's got 70 HP, Single Retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Setup is the power. Once during your turn, when you put Uxie from your hand on your bench, you can draw cards until you have 7. So really good power. Just keeps you consistent. Staple in the format. And then Psychic Restore for 1. You do 20, and then you can put Uxie and all cards attached to the bottom of your deck in any order. It does have some uses against like Gengar, and getting it off the board can be good depending on the board as well. You do play an Azelf as well. So Azelf is another staple consistency card. So it's got 70 HP, Single Retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Time Walk is the reason you play it. So once during your turn, when you play Azelf from your hand onto your bench, search your deck or search your prizes for a Pokemon, put it in your hand, and then switch a card from your hand with that card that was in your prizes. So good consistency. If you have either part of the ERL prize, you don't have access to that. If you have Regirock prize, that's really bad. Either part of the Manectric line prize, that can be really bad as well. And it just keeps your Pokemon consistent. Okay, so getting into the trainer cards. So does play 4 Super Scoop Up. Super Scoop Up's kind of cool. You can scoop up a Donphan, and Donphan's really tanky. So because it has that 1 energy, you can just go hit, Super Scoop Up, and then put another Donphan in the active, then just start swinging for a bunch of damage again. Just really good healing. You can heal your Manectrics with it as well, because you do take damage on the Manectric. So being able to scoop it up if your opponent is playing a Garchomp and they snipe it for 80 and they're like, okay, go ahead and Earthquake, you just die. So having an out to that can be really good. And Uxie as well. You can scoop up a Uxie and then draw some more with it. So that's kind of a neat part about that card as well. You play 3 Pokecoms. So you play so many Pokemon in this deck that Pokecom is really effective, and you have to find a way to find ERL. So you need both of these cards and you need to play them at the same time. It only takes up 1 bench slot, but you need both of them in your hand, and then you play them as 1 Pokemon. And if you don't have both pieces, you can't play the card. And Pokecom just lets you find that second piece of ERL. Okay, you play 2 Expert Belt as well. So these are to keep your Donphan alive for even longer. 1 for 80 is like such good, like it's just great value when you're hitting one energy for 80 damage. That's actually really insane. And with the additional 20 HP, it just makes you that more livable too, right? Like you have 20 more HP with Exoskeleton, and you're just living for a really long time if that's on a Donphan. You also play 1 Bench Shield. So it's a Pokemon tool card. And then as long as it's attached to one of your Pokemon, that Pokemon doesn't take any damage on the bench from attacks. So definitely really solid. I mean, if you can put it on a Claydol and then ERL, use the lightning attack if you need to do that, and then you still keep your Claydol. Putting it on a Manectric is good as well, because then everything on your bench is safe from damage from an attack. That's another really good use for it, is putting on a Manectric. So you can play Night Maintenance as well. Night Maintenance, search your discard pile for up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards, and then shuffle them into your deck. So good for recovering like Donphan lines. It's your main attacker, so you only play a 4/4, and being able to get that 1/1 line back just means you're playing even more Donphans in your opponent's face. Getting back your Manectric line can be really good as well as the Regirock. It kind of just like depends on what your board is, but getting back that energy can be good. It's just good late game, mid to late game consistency. You also play a Warp Point. So Warp Point says your opponent switches one of the defending Pokemon with one of his or her bench Pokemon, and then you do the same. It's kind of nice because you do have some free retreaters in the deck. The Elektrike and the Manectric have free retreat. There's just some situations where you want to switch whatever's in the active. Donphan does have a fat retreat of 4, so getting him out of there can be really good until you find a super scoop up or something to heal that up. And you do play a Luxury Ball as well. So Luxury Ball, search your deck for any Pokemon. You don't play any level X Pokemon, so you can literally just search for any Pokemon. Really, really good card. Especially like when you play ERL, a Calm and a Luxury Ball, and then all of a sudden you have the ERL. So you play 3 Stark Mountain as your stadium as well. Stark Mountain's a really interesting stadium. It says once during each player's turn, they can choose a fire or fighting energy attached to one of their Pokemon and move it to one of their fire or fighting Pokemon. So that's great for ERL. I mean, you can get an attach and then the Stark Mountain to switch from the Regirock. That's kind of the synergy with Regirock. Regirock Stark Mountain is the way that you accelerate your energy. And eventually you get to a point in the game where you are just, I don't need these cards, right? Like I don't need these cards in my hand, and I'd rather discard them, get an energy on the Regirock, and then Stark Mountain so that I'm loading up my attackers. Heavy Impact is such a good attack with Donphan. Like Earthquake obviously is good too, but 3 for 90 is like, it 2-shots literally everything in the format. So definitely a really solid stadium. Keeps your energy consistent. Now getting into the supporter line, we do play 4 Collector. So Collector is great because it finds all your basic Pokemon. So being able to find like Uxies and stuff, your Baltoys, getting the Regirock and the Phanpy is all really important. Oh, and the Elektrike as well. So getting those setup Pokemon so that you're not taking damage on your own board and that you're setting up. Honestly, Collector is just a broken card, like really, really good card. Okay, so you play 3 Bebe Search as well. So Bebe Search is another way to find ERL, or Entei Raikou Legend. And then you also, it's just like good Pokemon consistency. Take a card from your hand, put it on the top of your deck, and then search your deck for a Pokemon. Just like pretty staple in this format. A lot of decks play Bebe Search because it is pretty good search. You play 3 Judge. It's kind of an interesting card in this list. I guess it's just for hand disruption. Honestly, this list itself is good. I do like the list, but the deck is kind of inherently weak. It just like I said before, it's just like it doesn't match up to the strength of a lot of other decks in the format. So I guess part of that is Judge. You judge your opponent and then you hurt their hand, and hopefully that works. I guess that's kind of a suspect strategy, but works for the deck, I guess. You play 1 Felicity's Drawing. So Felicity's is great to get those fightings in the discard so that you can get them back with Regirock. That's pretty much the only reason you play Felicity. It's just it's a decent supporter for sure. Good to thin stuff that you don't need as well. Like if you don't need ERL in a matchup, you can just chuck it with Felicity's. You play a Roseanne's Research as well. So Roseanne's, search your deck for up to 2 in a combination of basic energy cards and basic Pokemon. Show them to your opponent and then put them in your hand. Again, another just like good supporter card that helps you find your basics and your energy. And now getting into the energy line, plays 4 multi-energy. So multi lets you attack with the Manectric, lets you attack with Entei Raikou Legend. It can be the fire for that. And then other than that, you can just put it on anything else and then it's a fighting. If you have 2 multi-energy attached to something, they're both colorless, but as long as there's no other special energy attached to the Pokemon with multi-energy is every energy. Then you also play 7 fighting energies. So 11 energies when you play a single energy attacker is definitely a solid amount. And then you play those other attacks as well. Like the ERL is a 2 energy cost, and then Heavy Impact is 3. So being able to find those fightings so that you can get them into the discard and accelerate them with Regirock so that you can start heavy impacting and using your stronger attacks is definitely a good consistency out. When you play 7, you find them in your hand so that you can discard them with Felicities and discard them with Regicycle so that you can get them back on. Okay, well, this has been Donphan. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get to it. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.